Tactical Breach Wizard is a breach-like. It's a tactics puzzler by Tom Francis. It's puzzler by Suspicious Developments Inc. and the third final title in the Defenestration trilogy. Actually, hold on. Tactical Breach Wizard is a breach-like by Suspicious Developments Inc. and the supposedly final title in the Defenestration trilogy. Command a team of spellcasters with wildly different abilities to throw every single man standing in your way out a window while following the footsteps of the world's most powerful soldier and stop World War V before it can even begin. Combat progresses thus. Most levels will start you outside of the combat zone, usually with multiple entry options for your characters to take. Your primary goal is to spend your turn closing off reinforcement doors and, sorry to repeat myself, throwing men out of windows. You have total control over the main phase of a turn, but enemies come to life during the foresee phase. Most of them aren't that smart, so they'll probably just aim their gun at you and fire, but later ones get trickier and tougher, so just hiding behind cover isn't going to work forever. By using your party's abilities in smart ways, you can deal with combat encounters with ease, at least on normal mode. And the way you have to use powers in tandem with each other to maximize damage is a lot of fun to think through, even before you get to the more complex party members. Because Twizzard says diagonal knockback, if you're smart you can cheat a bit and knock enemies 40% further by coming at them from the right angle. Not a right angle. The real crown is the rewind feature, maybe the nicest rewind I've ever seen. The best moments in Twizzards are when you've realized how to achieve a perfect turn, but in the middle of your sequence of actions you realize there's one small change you can make that would improve everything. The rewind is designed to allow players to try stupid shit with no real consequences, and shifts the tone of combat from a struggle against an onslaught of enemies to a playground for dumb ideas. I'm astonished it works as well as it does. I encountered literally zero issues using it. I'm not a coder, maybe saving a game state after every action isn't that impressive, but I'm impressed. Because you can see every enemy's intended action, simple guesswork is taken out of combat in order to make way for logical problem solving. I don't have much of a head for strategy games, but games like Into the Breach and Tactical Breach Wizards, hence breach-like, make every turn in combat into a list of simple goals to ensure the enemy team can deal as little damage as possible on their turn, as opposed to a more traditional tactics game that's more interested in the push and pull of warfare. This excellent combat system was designed by Tom Francis, but if anyone tells you this is a Tom Francis game, they either don't know what they're talking about or they don't respect labor. Twizzards was developed by a team called Suspicious Developments, and while it is Tom Francis's studio, Francis himself is vocal about the team he works with, and has been for years. Even early SusDev projects were still team projects. Francis handled the coding on SusDev's first title, Gunpoint, but John Roberts handled the visuals, and John Winder joined them to program for Heat Signature, effectively forming the team that would eventually make Twizzards. Minus the sound designers. The discussion around these games is so bad, I actually thought Gunpoint and Heat Signature were both solo dev projects until researching for this video. This is something I've been guilty of myself. I still call MGS and Death Stranding Kojima games sometimes, and it's behavior I'm working to correct, but I still think it's worth pointing out when I see it. Also, I really just like complaining. I don't mean to pick on Francis. He's an incredible game designer, he's effusive about the team he works with, but, I'm not the biggest fan of his writing. Tom Francis's writing style might be his greatest strength that became Twizzard's biggest weakness. In Gunpoint, the quirky, self-aware dialogue was a nice flourish for an otherwise fairly standard noir detective story, and Heat Signature's NPC conversations are excellent bits of world-building that speak volumes about each faction's belief system and how they relate to the gear they carry and the tactics they use. Twizzard's attempts to combine the two, but this type of self-aware dialogue is kinda come and gone, and I have a hard time buying into these dramatic, story-driven scenarios when everyone except Zan's mom talks to each other in Tumblr posts. I don't even really care if there's lesbians. This is my only real complaint with the writing, and it really is up to taste. I like the dialogue in some scenes, like the little bonus chats that do a lot of work in making some of the characters more likable, but in others it just got grating. I'm not just trying to be a big spoil sport or even a wet blanket. The story is well put together, there are a lot of moving pieces, everything makes sense, the characters are all well crafted, each has a fun personality except Zan, they have all their own beliefs, they all bounce off each other nicely, that kind of shit. But where I think the writing really takes off is in the world building of Craft in particular. Craft is a power set of Twizzards. Every wizard gets one basic power ranging across the spectrum of weak and powerful, intuitive and strange. Seemingly, these powers can be developed to perform a variety of functions, or otherwise give their users the ability to wield channels that store other people's craft. Now, I liked Craft immediately because it reminded me of Stans, including easily identifiable versions of Epitaph, Bites the Dust, and Sticky Fingers. There's even an Iggy. What clinched it for me was when Zan introduced the False Prophet ability, which somehow uses his foresight to clone himself. This kind of bullshit technicality is exactly why I love Stans, but I asked my friend what he thought and he said I was just a crazed loon, a rabid weeaboo attempting to tarnish the reputation of Tom Francis. But Craft especially shines when getting into origin stories. A user only unlocks their craft in life or death scenarios, and only if it's the power they actually need for that scenario. This simple rule does a lot of work in helping to paint the world and characters. Each wizard's origin origin story says as much about them as the craft they got from it. People are said to abuse drugs of pure mana to forcibly unlock their craft by pushing their bodies to the limit, and a PMC is researching ways to do the same more consistently. There are a few humorous instances of shitty crafts that get brought up throughout the game that also help to make the Twizzard's world feel more alive. Craft is just a really fucking good power system that lends itself serendipitously to gameplay. Zan's craft is Foresight, which defines the entire combat system. He's able to see 1 second into the future, what isn't particularly useful unless you're a Navy seer who specializes in surprise attacks. This is the in-game justification for the turn system and rewind function, which means that every turn you'll agonize over every move up for the entire campaign only actually lasts about a second each. Beyond that, he has a simple 3-shot burst with his wand that deals damage and light knockback, which he can also follow up other party members' attacks with for free. He can set up a shot to fire as soon as anything crosses his path. He can use time boost to give other teammates extra actions, and he can send out a Foresight clone to draw fire, interact with the environment, and attack enemies, including another free follow-up. This last one in particular gets really fucking nasty later on. It can pick up mana charges in spots Zan can't reach until the next turn, and its cost is refunded if it dies before turn's end, so on certain maps you can launch a dozen Zan clones to clear traps and take out tough boys as many times as you need for no cost. And by some metrics, Zan is actually the weakest character. Jen the Storm Witch launches technically harmless static bolts to knock enemies around, but it has enough knockback to even push heavy men. It can be upgraded to deal even more knockback at point blank and or refresh her move action. Her alternate attack can chain up to 6 objects, and if used properly, can refresh her attack action. She can use her broom to warp from one window to the next, and her simple air grenade can recharge friendly move actions. Put together, Jen is an excellent jack of all stats with solid DPS, a million fucking move actions and abilities, and just a hint of support to round her out. Banks is a necromedic. She can heal allies and hostiles, but she usually has to kill them first. She and Jen do tribadism and missionary. Her attacks are a sedative that poison enemies, but more importantly makes them unsteady for bonus knockback. And a giant spectral skull that can bounce off walls to hit everyone in its path except Banks. Spectral Skull can deal a fuckton of damage with good positioning, but takes careful planning to avoid hurting your allies. Or you can hit them anyways, Banks doesn't really care. She also has Death's Door, a portable window she can open on walls for easy kills, and Transference, which takes damage one character receives and transfers it to another. Banks might be the most technically complex character in Twizzards. More than anyone else, positioning every party member is extremely important to her kit. Her apathy towards others' lives means it's not hard to fuck up your own team pretty bad if you're sloppy. By contrast, Doll the Tank is the simplest character to play. She has a charge that deals knockback equal to its move distance that can refresh itself, a movable riot block that acts as a wall with a bonus to knockback damage, and her craft is a swap that lets her switch positions with anybody in eyesight. Her playstyle revolves around smart usage of her riot block, her charge, and her swap to get everywhere on the map with ease and fuck up enemies even easier. And with a perk that refunds friendly swaps, her movement is our movement. She's the only party member capable of double-digit single target damage, which is more health than almost every enemy in normal mode. And her confidence goals gently guide the player towards violent overkill. Oh yeah, confidence goals are bonus objectives in each mission that act as a currency for unlocking costumes, all of which the characters already own but which they need confidence to pull off. Confidence might be my singular favorite mechanic in Twizzards, and encourages unusual tactics that can highlight mechanics without tutorializing them. The costumes are all fresh as fuck, and it's just a really funny skeuomorphism for unlockable costumes. Confidence goals span the gamut of the easiest way to play the level and I actually have no fucking clue how to do this, which are both good. Either way, they're great tools for pointing players in the direction of fun gameplay. All the costumes go crazy, even the secret 5th characters who I can't talk about because they're a big ass spoiler, but they have my favorite origin story and a great power set. But you already knew that, because every party member has a great power set. An immense amount of thought is put into the way every power works together, how levels are shaped and how enemies are placed, how best to get the player to try stupid shit. Twizzards is just an incredible game by any metric. It's probably the best game of this year, if not necessarily my favorite. Everyone comparing it to Into the Breach aren't too far off. Francis openly admits to it informing some of the design, but tons of small details in the combat system push it to the next level beyond a cute little Mecha Kaiju puzzle box game. My opinion is just a small voice in a choir singing this game's praises, but if nothing else, I hope I said at least one thing about this game that you haven't heard before, even if it was just calling Jen intersex.